look to the 125 years ahead, celebrating this as a city, celebrating this as the Board of Trade, I think it's really important that we challenge each other to step up and look at what more we can do as a city, at our role in the world right now, to look at the attention that we have garnered over these past couple of years, from the Olympics in particular. We are on the world stage now, and people are paying attention to one of the world's most livable cities, what we've done here, and I think most importantly what we intend to do next, and connecting all these dots around prosperity, taking care of our community, taking care of our planet for the generations that come next in this city. So I look forward to working with you as your mayor at City Hall, being strong partners, working together, and certainly want to wish you all the best for this celebratory year. So I'm going to read a proclamation that I've made for this special day and this special year for the Board of Trade, and with that also to wish you a happy Year of the Dragon as well. I unfortunately have to step out to go to a big celebratory lunch of this Year of the Dragon in Chinatown, but I will wish you Gong Hei Fa Choi, Xin Yan Kuai Le to all of you. That's Cantonese and Mandarin for those scoring at home. And Happy New Year in English. So congratulations, happy birthday, Board of Trade. This is the proclamation. Whereas in 1887, in response to the Great Vancouver Fire, 31 merchants, lumbermen, bankers, and manufacturers, as Wendy said, formed an organization called the Vancouver Board of Trade to advocate for their interests, promote the trade of the area, and advance the general prosperity of Vancouver. And whereas 125 years later, those values and priorities continue to describe the purpose of the Vancouver Board of Trade. And whereas the Vancouver Board of Trade has played a defining role in the development of BC as a Pacific center for trade, investment, commerce, and travel, and whereas the Vancouver Board of Trade plays a pivotal role in the success, growth, and prosperity of the thousands of BC businesses that comprise its membership, and whereas the Vancouver Board of Trade is a leading voice of research and policy advice to governments at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels, and whereas the Vancouver of Trade fosters the development of business relationships and the exchange of knowledge and ideas by gathering members and exposing them to world-class speakers, education, and each other. And whereas the Vancouver Board of Trade has become the largest, most active, and most influential business organization of its kind in Western Canada, and whereas the Vancouver Board of Trade has a fantastic leader in Wendy and new ED and Ian, and congratulations to both of them. Now, therefore, I, Gregory Robertson, the Mayor of the City of Vancouver, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, January the 25th, 2011, as the Vancouver Board of Trade's 125th anniversary celebration day in the City of Vancouver. Thank you.
Mayor Robertson, we thank you so very much on behalf of the 5,000 members of the Vancouver Board of Trade and the volunteers that have worked for the past 125 years and that will work for the next 125 and more. We thank you so very much. It's my pleasure now, if I would like to invite my fellow colleague directors, Governor Wendy MacDonald, Ian, Graydon Hayward, David Hoff, to join us up on the stage here, please. And we'll take a quick picture with the mayor. And a very special thanks to our Mayor Gregory Robertson for taking time out of his day, which he did not have, and for doing this very special item for the Vancouver Board of Trade. Thank you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to speak to the Board of Trade, and I'd like to add my congratulations on your 125th anniversary of serving the business community and the broader community. It's quite an accomplishment. And before I begin, though, I would like to thank the ministers, Moore and LaBelle and Lekstrom, for joining us today. I think it's very pleased to see you there. We've relied on you for guidance and help over the years, and we'll continue to do that in the future, so really appreciate it. Well, in addition to our chair, Mary Jordan, there's several directors of the Airport Authority that are here, current directors as well as a couple of past directors. And I want to thank them for their leadership and support. And also I'd like to thank the members of my management team who are here. There's quite a few of them, and without you, of course, this is your airport. You're the people that make this thing work. Well, I recently read a book called Aerotropolis, and near the beginning is a sentence that says, the shapes and fates of cities have always been defined by transportation. And that's certainly true for Vancouver. Its history has been shaped by river transportation, rail, ocean transport, but Aerotropolis, the book goes on to say, today this means air travel. And the fate of cities is dramatically impacted by the success of their airport. And so this afternoon, I'd like to talk about our 10-year strategy to keep YVR one of the best airports in the world, a strategy to make YVR faster, more efficient, and more user-friendly. It's a strategy designed to attract new routes and new air carriers, and to ensure that British Columbia and Canada remains connected and competitive in a global economy. As we look to the future, it's always good to reflect on where we came from, and YVR is also celebrating a couple of significant anniversaries. 2011 marked YVR's 80th year of serving this community. And 80 years ago, the community leaders had a vision for British Columbia. There's a 1931 commemorative brochure that we still have in the office featured there. And it was for the opening of the airport in 1931. And I'll quote from it, just a little sentence. It says, "Away to the west lies the Orient and the countries bordering the Pacific Ocean. There lies the key to Canada's future prosperity. Trade with the hundreds of millions of those countries. And Vancouver is the port of entry." Well, this community continues to aspire to be the gateway between Asia and the Americas, and the Airport Authority has been guided by that vision. As of this year, 2012, as Stanis mentioned, the Airport Authority will have been serving the community for 20 years. July 1st is the 20th anniversary of the Airport Authority being devolved from the federal government. And the Board of Trade played a very key role in that transition, along with other members of the community, helping to shape what YVR would look like, transforming the YVR governance into a local board of directors, and developing a business plan and a strategy that would see YVR being a connection between Asia and the Americas, setting up an authority with the financial capability to meet the challenge of building a better airport for BC. Well, looking back over those 20 years, I hope you'll agree that the $2 billion we've invested in the airport has been wisely spent. As a not-for-profit corporation, all our earnings are plowed back into the airport to provide improved facilities, more air service, and a better customer experience. During the lunch, at the start of the lunch, we ran a short video. It showed our investment in YVR. I certainly won't go through all of the projects, although some colleagues from SNC and Stantec and PCL would probably could. But they certainly include the North Runway, building the North Runway, the International Terminal, expanding and upgrading the domestic terminal, roads, bridges, upgrades to airfield safety. I would like to say a bit about two projects. First, the Canada Line. It's been literally a phenomenal success. Over 16% of passengers ride that line, and about the same number of employees use it to get to work at the airport. It is one of the best performing airport rail links in North America. And I think it's evidence of a very successful joint venture with the federal government, the province, the airport, TransLink, and SNC-Lavalin, who was the P3 partner. The second project I want to mention officially opened 2 weeks ago today. The first ground run-up enclosure in Canada. After engine maintenance work, airlines have to test their aircraft engines. And propeller aircraft will use this facility, and it cuts their noise about in half, which is very welcome by our neighboring communities. In addition, we use this facility for de-icing, and it gathers the de-icing fluids and ensures they don't get into their groundwater systems. Well, today, British Columbia has an airport that consistently ranks among the world's best. And we've been named the top airport in North America in the annual Skytrax survey for 2 years running. We've worked to greatly expand BC's connectivity to the world over the last 20 years. One example would be China. In 1992, YVR had 17 flights a week to China, 15 to Hong Kong, and 2 to Shanghai. This summer, YVR will have 55 passenger flights a week, including Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and a new service that will start this coming summer. It'll start in Chengdu, a city of 14 million. It'll go on to Shenyang, a city of 8 million, and then come into Vancouver, a somewhat smaller city. This new service is going to be operated by Sichuan Airlines, and it's going to be dedicated to bringing Chinese tour groups to BC and Canada. So we're very, very pleased with that. A couple of interesting facts about China. Next year, Beijing will surpass Atlanta as the world's busiest airport. I recall Beijing when it was 3 million passengers. It was not much bigger than this room. And also, it will surpass Australia. It just has, as Canada's 5th largest source of inbound tourists. Interesting. Also, I'd like to mention, starting in May, Virgin Atlantic will be operating 4 times a week service here from Heathrow. I want to welcome them. There's some representatives in the audience today. I want to thank them for their business. Well, why do we work so hard to attract additional air service? It's because air service has remarkable impact in terms of job creation and facilitating economic development. Our 2010 economic impact study found that Vancouver International Airport directly employs 23,600 people. And each direct job on airport supports more indirect jobs off airport. YVR contributes $1.9 billion to Canada's GDP, $608 million to various levels of government in the form of taxes and rent. An example, China Southern began 3 times a week passenger service to Guangzhou last summer. This one service generated 44 new jobs at the airport, $2.2 million in wages, contributes $3.5 million to Canada's GDP annually. China Southern also started an all-cargo service 3 times a week to Shanghai. This generates another 40 jobs. But more importantly, it hooks up BC businesses, exporters, agricultural products, seafood, heavy equipment and machinery, right into directly into the China market. Another example is the economic impact of new air service on tourism. Before Air New Zealand began direct service to Vancouver in 2007, BC saw about 20,000 visitors a year from New Zealand. Today we're seeing 35,000 because nonstop service makes it easier for people. It raises BC's profile. Well, these additional 15,000 visitors in turn created approximately 150 person years of employment in the tourism industry. Remarkable when you think of that. Now I want to turn to our 10-year strategy to build an even better airport for British Columbians. I'll explain how we plan to do that in an environment that is very different from what it was in 1992. 20 years ago, our geographic location was competitive advantage enough. Vancouver was the closest major West Coast city to Asia. Planes could only go so far, and they couldn't fly over the North Pole. There's some geopolitical reasons. There was also technological reasons. The book I referred to earlier, Aerotropolis, notes that for airports, these old 3 rules of real estate, location, 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 no longer apply. The new rules are accessibility, accessibility, and accessibility. With new aircraft and navigational technology, a lot more cities are accessible from Asia today. And these cities have figured out what YVR's founders knew. Serving as a gateway can bring vast economic benefits to their communities. And we face a dramatically different competitive landscape than we did 20 years ago. Our competitors are not limited to Los Angeles and San Francisco. They include Toronto, Chicago, and our next-door neighbors. Both Edmonton and Calgary want to be gateways between Asia and the Americas as well. Edmonton is opening 12 new international gates next month. Calgary is building a new runway and 22 new gates, which will open in 2015. Now, our international terminal has 27 gates today. Calgary is adding almost as much capacity as the size of our international terminal. Well, neither Calgary nor Edmonton has the passenger traffic to fill those gates today. So guess whose traffic they're looking at? They're going to be very aggressive to try to attract new traffic. And Vancouver's going to have to work hard to remain competitive and maintain our role as Asia's gateway to the Americas. And we can't forget our competitors down the road either, Seattle and Bellingham. Seattle recently attracted new service from Emirates Airlines to Dubai, a carrier that I note, and the minister is well aware of this, can't fly to Vancouver under some current international agreements. Well, fortunately, we aren't the new kid on the block when it comes to building gateway services, and that's a competitive advantage. We have other advantages too. Long-standing family and business ties with Asia. Our trade with Asia Pacific is higher than any other province, almost double that of Alberta. More than 500,000 British Columbians speak an Asian language at home. We're a premier tourist destination, recently voted the top location in North America for international meetings. And finally, YVR is low cost and a high service airport. We recognize that airlines have choices, and keeping our costs to the air carriers as low as possible is crucial to our competitive equation. But in looking at recent gateway performance, we noticed an unsettling trend. While our Asia-Pacific traffic grew pretty dramatically in the first 10 years, it flattened out in our second decade. Now, there are a number of reasons for that. 9/11, SARS, the 08-09 recession, the recent earthquake in Japan, strong Canadian dollar. There's quite a list of issues here. But increased competition from other airports was also a major factor. So we began working with the province and our airline partners to boost our competitive position by significantly improving the value proposition offered at YVR to both airlines and passengers. The first thing we did as part of our overall 10-year strategy was to come up with a new aeronautical fee structure that gives carriers an incentive to add new service at YVR. We told the carriers that we would freeze their fees at the 2010 level for 5 years in exchange for a commitment to add new service. New service that would essentially be at no charge. I'm pleased to say 22 airlines, covering about 80% of our traffic, signed up to participate in this Gateway Incentive Program. The province, and we're very appreciative of this, said that it would eliminate the fuel tax on international flights. That 2-cent per liter tax cost a 747 daily to Hong Kong about $1.2 million a year. That's a cost airlines don't pay in Alberta, Washington, or California. And we're pleased to see that the Legislative Committee reviewing the 2012 provincial budget recommends that this go forward. I just want to take a second to commend the province's Asia-Pacific initiative, including its new tourism strategy. Its focus on expanding ties with this region dovetails well with our gateway strategy, and working in sync bodes well for our success. We know that keeping fees to the airlines low is not enough. To be a competitive airport, we have to make the airport faster and easier for passengers and airlines. Today, there's one area where we are not competitive, and that is in the minimum time it takes to transfer from an international to a domestic flight. It takes an average of 90 minutes to make that connection. And you can see here that our primary customer, Air Canada, says we have the longest connection time among Canada's major airports, and we agree with that. To be a gateway of choice from Asia, we need to get connection times to consistently under 60 minutes. Because when people are booking their tickets online, we want services through YVR to appear on the first page of potential flights, not buried somewhere in the page 3 or 4. To get this shorter connection time for passengers and their bags, we need to change some government policies, and we need to make our terminal work better. Why does it take so long to connect today? Because you have to go through all the steps that you see on this screen. When we were done, the process will be a lot simpler. I just want to add that while we're working to shorten connection times, we will also be upgrading one of the few remaining areas of the domestic terminal that still dates from 1968. We'll bring the area up to today's seismic and barrier-free codes. A few years ago, we updated C-Pier, the area primarily used by Air Canada for its domestic flights. When complete in 2015, the south end of the terminal, primarily used by WestJet, will have a similar look and feel to C-Pier. Much brighter, easier for passengers to circulate, and of course these projects will create value for the airlines. WestJet, you'll know, has entered into agreements with a number of international carriers, Cathay, Korean, JAL, China Eastern, to make it easier for passengers on these airlines to connect to destinations in Canada or even the US. Air Canada has agreements with its Star Alliance partners, such as Air China, Air New Zealand, Lufthansa, and can connect these passengers beyond Vancouver. Again, more passengers using YVR means more flight choices, more tourists, and more jobs for British Columbians. Overall, in the next 10 years, we'll be investing $1.8 billion to keep a YVR an economic generator for BC and Canada. Other projects included in our 10-year investment are designed to ensure that airport infrastructure, runways, roads, bridges, sewer, water, and dikes remain in good repair. Others will enhance customer service. Others will support our continuous improvement of safety and security. I just want to mention one individual project. This is the construction of runway end safety areas. Runway end safety areas are designed to protect aircraft and passengers from situations where a plane undershoots or overshoots the runway. The RESA adds between 150 and 300 meters to both ends of the runway. We expect final federal regulations on the requirements next year. This is a requirement that arises from the Air France incident at Toronto Airport a few years ago. We, of course, have to fund that $1.8 billion investment. As we have in the past, we will fund capital projects through operating revenues, debt, and the Airport Improvement Fee, or AIF. We took a hard look at our revenue sources and concluded that to make the improvements YVR needs, it is necessary to increase the Airport Improvement Fee. Effective May 1 of this year, we will increase the AIF from $15 to $20. However, the Airport Improvement Fee for travel within British Columbia and the Yukon will remain $5. A lot of thought went into this decision. Over the last 20 years, we raised the AIF only once, and that was in 2004 to help fund the Canada Line. Other major airports in Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, have already raised their AIFs to $25 a couple of years ago. As is the case today, all AIF funds go towards capital improvements. In our annual community survey, we asked the public if they supported the use of the AIF for making improvements to the airport's facilities. Over 2/3 said that they did. We would do our part to build the infrastructure that BC and Canada needs, but building connectivity between Asia and the Americas also needs work closely with both the provincial and the federal government. One policy area is transit without visa. This is a program that allows nationals of participating countries to transit Canada without the need to obtain a Canadian visa, provided they have a visa for the US. Passengers don't have to go through the trouble and expense of obtaining two visas. I'm very pleased to say that the federal government created a trial program for Chinese nationals. And just today, this afternoon actually, Air China announced that it is the first mainland China carrier to be granted approval by the Canadian government to participate in the Transit Without Visa program. With programs such as this, Canada can be China's gateway to the Americas. Well, I can report that there also has been considerable progress on opening Canada's skies for more service. Recently, Canada and China amended their air service treaty to allow some additional route options for cargo services, and that was very instrumental in getting China Southern's cargo service into Vancouver. Of course, no surprise, I would like for the federal government to pick up the pace of negotiations with our Asian trading partners and adopt a bit more of a proactive approach, because if the carriers can't fly here, it's hard to pique their interest. It's that accessibility axiom I mentioned earlier. The BC businesses we surveyed when preparing our economic impact study told us that connectivity through YVR is what enables them to compete in a global marketplace. 86% of the businesses surveyed said that proximity to YVR was important in their organization's decision to locate here. Today, 47% of the world's economy is accessible by daily nonstop service from YVR. This compares with 35% from Seattle and 22% from Calgary. Well, we want to keep this edge. A 2008 study found that a 10% increase in intercontinental air service led to a 4% increase in corporate headquarters locating in the corresponding area. The converse has also been found to be true. when communities lose air service, they lose business. A recent example is Cincinnati, Ohio. Due to the merger of Delta and Northwest, it has gone from over 670 flights a day to less than 200. Companies have left the area, and the economic impact of the airport was reduced by almost $2 billion. So more air service at YVR means more dollars in our community from added employment, from the expansion of trade and tourism, and from overseas firms that locate their offices here. On top of the airport's current contribution to the economy, we expect that the Gateway Development Project I outlined here just now will add some 2,000 more direct jobs at YVR and many more downstream in the economy. Our sights are set on making YVR the gateway of choice to and from the Asian market. We want YVR to remain an airport that British Columbians and Canadians are proud of. And by we, I don't just mean the Airport Authority. I include the airport community, a community made up of some 400 businesses, over 23,000 employees. I want to acknowledge them, I want to thank them, because they play a big part in making YVR one of the best airports in the world. Thank you.